Hi guys, Steve from Crossbow College here. This is a sequel to a tutorial that I've already posted on the components of a basic crossbow. For this tutorial, I am going to assume that you've already watched the prequel and that you are now ready to learn about the components of a modern compound crossbow. I know, compound bow technology has been around since 1969 and that it's almost 50 years old. But in comparison to the 2,500 years that the crossbows have been around, it's fair to call it new or modern technology, since many of the components were not technologically possible to manufacture until recently. So in this lesson we are going to learn about the other components that make up a modern compound crossbow. On the whole, your first impression is that this is going to be a much more powerful crossbow than a recurve. So let's take a look at what makes up the components of a modern crossbow. Naturally, when you look at this modern crossbow, the first thing your eyes are drawn to is the cable and pulley system on the limbs. Invented in 1966 and patented in 1969, this configuration is what is known as compound bow technology. Just because the words sound familiar, I'm going to point out that I am saying compound, not composite. A composite bow refers to a traditional bow that is made out of layers of different materials instead of just one piece of bent wood. A compound bow refers to a crossbow that uses cables, cams, and pulleys to vastly change the draw on the crossbow string through the use of leverage. The vast majority of compound crossbows are going to need to use a bow press to compress the limbs enough and be strong enough to safely and securely hold your limbs in place when you need to replace either your cables or string. Some manufacturers are now beginning to create compound crossbows that do allow you to make these changes without a bow press, but sadly this technology has not become widespread yet. Since bow presses are large, expensive, and rarely used, most people simply take their compound crossbow to their local pro shop and pay them a couple of bucks to use their bow press to do the work for you. The cams are these two wheels at the end of each limb. Basically, all cams are going to be oval, some more than others. There are two grooves in them. One groove is for the cables and the other is for our string. Some cams are solid while others are skeletonized to reduce weight and/or to increase their visual appeal. The cables are separate from the string. By this I mean there are physically two items. You can change out the string without ever touching the cables. Your cables are usually a heavy-duty string with loops, servings, and plastic sheaths to protect the sections that are being rubbed against the cam grooves. If you look at the cables, you can see that they are starting out by being connected to the cam up here. They come along, and then when they reach to the other end, they split into a Y shape. One of them going to the outside side of the limb, the other one going to the inside part of the limb. The process is reversed, going in the opposite direction. It goes from the cam through and then to the outsides of the limb. It is through the engineering magic of leverage that the phenomenon of let-off occurs. The easiest way of explaining this is to say that compound crossbows offer you a two-stage draw. In the initial part of the pull, the string is relatively normal in how much muscle it takes to do it. However, when the cams roll over their oval peak, usually this occurs after only a few inches, when there is an immediate reduction in the amount of muscle needed to finish cocking the crossbow. This relief in tension can be anywhere from 50 to as much as 90%. This reduction in the draw power needed to fully cock the crossbow makes compound crossbows very desirable if you will be using a rope cocking device or doing it manually. The limbs of the compound crossbow are in two pieces. There is a left and a right limb. Each is shaped slightly different and cannot be swapped with each other. There are two kinds of limbs, solid and split. The end of each limb has a small split so that the cam can be inserted. In a split limb, this split continues down several inches of the limb. The idea behind the split limb is that 1, it reduces weight, and 2, it decreases wind resistance, offering a faster limb. Riser. The riser is what connects your limbs to your stock. In traditional compound crossbows, the riser is found at the front of the stock. On the newer reverse draw crossbows, the riser is next to the shooter. Risers are typically made of strong, lightweight materials. The limbs are connected to the riser using a limb boot and a rocker. The modern crossbow has a sight rail instead of using an iron sight. In fact, most compound crossbows do not even offer an iron sight option. Sight rails are universally sized with slots that allow you to quickly mount and align a scope on your crossbow. Most sight rails are fixed and level with the crossbow rail, but I have seen one manufacturer who offers a sight rail that can be tilted rather than changing the settings on your scope when it comes to sighting in on distances. Depending on the length or configuration of your sight rail, you may also be able to add additional items like a laser light or a camera mount. Most modern crossbows come with a scope designed for use with crossbows. By designed for use with crossbows, I mean that the base setting for the crosshairs is going to be for a crossbow shooting at a target that is 20 yards away instead of the 100 yards that is the usual base setting for a rifle scope. The maximum distance on most crossbow scopes is only 100 yards, even though the crossbow can shoot much farther than this distance. There are a wide variety of crossbow scopes that are available, literally hundreds to choose from. They come in different powers, different colors, different sizes, different levels of quality, and many different types of reticles. You can get electric scopes called Illuminated that display a glowing reticle. Some of these scopes have the ability to adjust the brightness of the reticle or to even make it a different color, like green instead of red. Crossbow users have even started using the Reflex Sight. This is a sight that has no natural magnification, although you can install a magnifying lens that flips in between you and the sight and then flips back down to the side and out of the way during firing. The main advantages to this sight are that you can keep both eyes open and looking around. As long as you can see the reticle, it will hit whatever the reticle was centered on. Reflex sights do not have a parallax issue. They are simply see and shoot. Even though they have only one lens, they still have the ability to be adjusted for elevation and windage. In short, you have many scope options that can help you out with hitting your target. I can pretty much guarantee that you will be able to find a decent scope for your budget. Anti-dry fire is not a feature that is exclusive to compound crossbows, but it is almost always found on them. The anti-dry fire feature is meant to prevent you from accidentally dry firing your crossbow. Essentially, if there isn't a bolt in place to push the ADF lever out of the way, it will remain in place and prevent the string from being fired. This is a wonderful feature, and I strongly recommend that you shop for crossbows that have it. The modern safety switch assembly does more than just prevent you from pulling the trigger prematurely or by accident. Today's safety switch locks the trigger, anchors the string, and refuses to fire when unloaded. The safety switch is usually engaged when the string is fully cocked. Depending on the manufacturer, you may be offered the ability to disable the ADF and to slide the safety switch in and out of the safe condition. Unless you have a crossbow that is specifically designed to be either left or right, your normal crossbow safety switch is going to be ambidextrous, allowing you to use it from either side. Most manufacturers are now putting an underside rail on the stock. This underside rail allows us to use more add-ons. Add-ons such as a quiver, a vertical grip, a bipod, a flashlight, a laser light, etc. Think of it as your accessories rail. The crank cocking device. Yes, this is an optional feature, but many people use them, so I'm going to include it here. The crank cocking device is usually built into the architecture of the crossbow stock. I only know of one manufacturer that offers you no choice but to use their proprietary crank cocking system as the sole way to cock their crossbow. The rest make a stock with pop-outs that you can remove and use for installing their crank cocking device. The most attractive feature of the crank cocking device is that it greatly reduces the draw weight. For instance, this is a 150-pound draw weight crossbow, but when I use the CCD on it, it brings that weight all the way down to just 17 pounds. I'm sorry that I don't have one to show you, but one manufacturer has managed to bring their very high poundage crossbow draw down to a mere 4 pounds. This means that virtually anyone will be able to easily cock the string. People have been using a variety of methods to reduce the sound and vibration produced by the crossbow for many, many years. Not all methods of dampening the sound and vibration will work on all crossbows, and in some rare cases may even be detrimental to the crossbow's performance. You should always check with your crossbow manufacturer to find out their recommendations and any specific advice or optimal device locations. Let's take a look at some of these devices. Starting at the end of the crossbow, you have the stirrup dampeners. These rubber add-ons absorb vibration and help to stabilize your stirrup from vibrating, which allows your bolt to exit the rail smoother. Next, we have string dampeners. This is probably the oldest form of quieting the crossbow. Perhaps the earliest form is the use of several pieces of yarn cut into 2-inch lengths and lined up in a bundle that is then inserted into the string about halfway between the serving and the loop on the sides. The string is spread apart and the strands inserted together in a bundle. When the string is reclosed, these strands spread out like the whiskers of a cat. Putting these on each side of your crossbow at equal distance from the stock will reduce the amount of vibration on the string, which helps to reduce sound. I have seen variations on this concept where various types of rubber strands are used instead of yarn. There are string dampeners that are solid rubber. Like our previous example, you use a string spreader to open up the string and place them in it. Note, I would like to mention that many manufacturers of compound crossbows have cautioned me against using the insertable type of string dampener on the strings. The compound crossbow uses a string that is tightly wound, and it would be exceptionally easy, if not inevitable, to damage the string just trying to spread it open. Even without tension on the string, spreading it apart is not going to be an easy task, and I strongly recommend against trying it. Recurve crossbows use a different kind of string, and using this type of string dampener does not present any problems for them. The retainer clip dampener is a piece of rubber that slides onto or glues on top of your retention clip. Make sure that if you decide to use one of these, that it is placed so it will not interfere with the bolt fletching. In the next few years, I expect that we will see the retention clip disappear and to see it replaced with a much quieter whisker brush that more manufacturers are beginning to use. The whisker brush replaces the retention clip. Since the bolt fletching slides right through it while being held securely in place, it eliminates the sound and vibration that happens when the bolt is fired and the clip slaps down on the rail. Limb dampeners are used with split limb crossbows. This type of dampener is inserted in the limb and between the branches. Some are inserted sideways and then twisted into place, while others are a two-piece setup with a screw connecting the two halves of the dampener in place. These limb dampeners help to reduce the amount of vibration caused by the limbs during firing. Make sure that you consult your crossbow manufacturer for the optimum placement of these dampeners. They will have already experimented with them and will know the optimum location for your model of crossbow. and we'll be right back after this quick message. In summary, we have learned about the common components of an advanced crossbow. We have learned about the compound crossbow and how it differs from the recurve crossbow. We've learned about the ways to make a crossbow quieter and smoother to handle. Please be sure to give this video a thumbs up so I score a hit, and subscribe to this channel for additional lessons on crossbows. Please leave your comments below and I will try to reply as soon as possible. Thank you for watching and enjoy your crossbow.